Good evening and welcome. We are now ready to begin. But before we do, for those of you who may be Spanish speakers, we have translation services available. When the meeting starts, click on the globe icon that will appear in the menu bar and select Spanish from the drop-down menu. For those people on a mobile device, click on the three dots More option, select Spanish, and enter Done.
Para aquellas personas que ocupan este servicio, esta reunión en español, en unos momentos van a ver un icono del globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Por favor, háganle clic al globo del mundo, escojan el cuarto español. Si está en un teléfono celular, por favor oprima los 3 puntos que dice More y después elija la sección que dice Done bajo interpretación. Muchas gracias.
Welcome to the virtual public meeting for Navy's draft environmental assessment for proposed eelgrass habitat expansion in San Diego Bay in San Diego, California. My name is Jason Golumsky-Jones, and I am the Navy Region Southwest Fleet Environmental Director and the project proponent for the eelgrass assessment. My colleagues and I will present information about the project. We will also let you know how you can give your written comments on the proposed projects, both tonight and following tonight's meeting. Please note that this virtual public meeting is being recorded. Also, please hold off on submitting your written questions until we start the comments section. Our meeting will start with opening remarks from the Navy Region Southwest Chief of Staff, Captain Dwight Clements.
Hello, I'm Captain Woody Clements, the Chief of Staff of Commander Navy Region Southwest. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the public meeting for the Draft Environmental Assessment, or Draft EA for short, for the proposed expansion of eelgrass habitat in San Diego Bay. Navy Region Southwest is the action proponent for this project, and we welcome and value your input. The Navy is committed to the conservation and management of San Diego Bay. Eelgrass is one of its most critical aquatic resources. This important project proposes to add additional eelgrass habitat, and in doing so, furthers the Navy's commitment to the conservation and management of San Diego Bay's resources while helping support the Navy's mission. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to present you with information on the proposed project and request your written input on the draft EA. The following presentation will provide you with information about the project, the importance of eelgrass and its habitat, the Navy's findings in the draft EA, and opportunities and instructions for you to provide written comment on the draft EA. Thank you again for joining us. The Navy appreciates your interest in the proposed expansion of eelgrass habitat in San Diego Bay, and we look forward to receiving your written comments. Hello.
Thank you, sir. Hello again. As I have said, I am Jason Golumsky-Jones, the Navy Region Southwest Fleet Environmental and Government Affairs Director. I am representing Navy Region Southwest, who is the action proponent or lead for this project. I will now provide the agenda for tonight's meeting and some background on the project. Here is our agenda for the meeting. This evening's meeting consists of 2 parts. First, we will present an overview of the main elements of the proposed project and the draft environmental assessment. We will describe the project location and background. We will explain why the project is needed and explain what the project or proposed action consists of. We will also provide a bit of information on eelgrass and why it is a critical resource in San Diego Bay. We will then present the alternatives analyzed in the draft EA, provide an overview of the national Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, process, and summarize the findings of the draft EA. Finally, the second part of this meeting will provide an opportunity for you to provide written comments at the meeting. As the captain mentioned, we are most interested in receiving your written comments on the draft EA. We will explain to you how you can provide your written comments either tonight or after the meeting. We will not be accepting verbal comments tonight. Please hold off on submitting your written comments until we start the comment section. I will now provide some background information on the project and why the Navy needs the project. This project is located within San Diego Bay. The project area consists of San Diego Bay and its inner and outer waters, to include the outer bay as shown here on the map. This map also depicts communities and Navy installations. I'll point out some key Navy installations using the colors of the shapes shown on the map. Starting first on the right, you'll find Naval Base San Diego outlined in orange. Across the bay on the bottom right, along the ocean in green, is Silver Strand Training Complex North and South. Then to the north is Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, shown in blue. Continuing north, up the coast from there, in yellow, you will find Naval Air Station North Island Coronado. And finally, to the left, in purple, is Naval Base Point Loma. Navy projects and activities associated with these installations may have the potential to impact aquatic habitat in San Diego Bay. Thus, this project considered the potential for eelgrass habitat expansion in and adjacent to San Diego Bay to offset unavoidable impacts to eelgrass. The Navy created the Eelgrass Mitigation Bank on June 26, 2008. The bank was first marine mitigation bank created on the West Coast. The bank is made up of multiple mitigation sites and allows for new sites to be added to the bank. The bank currently consists entirely of common eelgrass. Since its celebrated establishment in 2008, the Navy has used credits in the bank to offset unavoidable impacts from infrastructure projects and testing and training activities in San Diego Bay. The use of the bank is an accepted manner for compensating for impacts and an efficient mechanism for permitting such projects. The Navy must implement waterfront development activities to repair and replace aging infrastructure and to support fleet training and testing requirements. While the Navy designs mission-critical infrastructure projects in San Diego Bay to avoid or minimize impacts to eelgrass and other aquatic habitat, sometimes impacts are unavoidable. Likewise, new training and testing activities and legacy site cleanup activities can also impact eelgrass and other aquatic habitat. When unavoidable adverse impacts to aquatic habitat occur, the Navy must mitigate or offset those impacts. In addition, new training and testing activities and legacy site cleanup activities have added to eelgrass needs. Given anticipated future needs for increased operations and infrastructure projects in San Diego Bay, the expansion of eelgrass habitat is necessary to provide additional bank credits. The draft EA provides details on the process of identifying potential new sites for expanding use in this important eelgrass mitigation bank. This figure depicts existing eelgrass bank sites that the Navy has created over the years. The individual eelgrass mitigation bank sites are named Navy Eelgrass Mitigation Sites, or NEMS. They are numbered 1 through 6 on this map. There is no Site 3 because Site 3 was never established. In addition, the Navy is in the process of establishing Site 7, located in Smuggler's Cove off of Naval Base Point Loma. The sites range in size from 0.54 acres at Site 2 to 16.5 acres at Site 5, the average acreage of 6.45 acres per site. In total, the existing sites provide approximately 33 acres of eelgrass credit in the bank. Generally, it takes the Navy approximately 5 to 7 years to bring a potential site from concept to fruition. The Navy prepared this draft EA as part of the environmental planning process. The draft EA provides the reasoning and rationale for the purpose and need for the federal proposed action. The Navy anticipates that future projects and activities in support of future Navy mission requirements could have unavoidable negative impacts on eelgrass habitat in the Bay. So the purpose of the Navy's proposed expansion of eelgrass habitat by the Navy would allow these mission-critical projects to be implemented using credits in the bank to offset those potential unavoidable negative impacts to eelgrass habitat. This will ensure the continued commitment to conservation of the San Diego Bay ecosystem. Here is the reason why the Navy needs the project. With the evolving Navy mission and increased focus into the Pacific, the Navy expects that future projects and activities will continue to occur in San Diego Bay, which will require using eelgrass mitigation bank credits. With the anticipated increase in activity, the Navy also anticipates a similar increase in mitigation requirements and associated demand for bank credits, leading to a reduction in the bank balance. Knowing that adding eelgrass to the bank can take 5 to 7 years, the Navy knows that credits can arise at any time. The Navy must start planning in advance now to increase the current eelgrass bank balance. This will facilitate implementation of future Navy projects and activities in the Bay to meet future aquatic habitat mitigation needs. To meet the purpose and need of the project, the Navy proposes to add the existing eelgrass mitigation bank by expanding eelgrass habitat at 1 or more sites in San Diego Bay in San Diego, California. The proposed action would consist of site selection and establishment, planting activities, site monitoring, maintenance, reporting, and finally adding credits to the eelgrass bank. In order to establish a new site, suitable dredge material would be placed on the site using standard dredge, scow, and supporting vessels. Only dredge material determined by the United States Army Corps of Engineers and the United States Environmental Protection Agency to be physically, chemically, and biologically suitable would be used. No hard substrate, such as rock or concrete, would be placed to stabilize the site. Next, eelgrass donor shoots would come from existing beds in San Diego Bay to be planted at the site. The Navy would monitor the site, maintain the site, and report on the site over time. As with the current process for new eelgrass in the existing bank, the site must be accepted by an interagency mitigation bank review team consisting of Army Corps of Engineers and the National Marine Fisheries Service. Once accepted, the credits are available for use. Eelgrass planting may or may not be completed within the 5 years, depending on the site and availability of suitable dredged material as used for fill to create the site, if needed. If the project extends beyond 5 years from the decision document date, the Navy will evaluate if the environmental analysis in the EA is sufficient or determine if there is a need for supplemental environmental analysis to address any potential changes. And now I'll turn it over to Jess Curran, a Navy marine biologist, who will talk about eelgrass and the alternative locations considered for the CA.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Hello, everybody. Good evening. My name is Jessica Curran, and I'm a marine biologist at Navy Region Southwest. And now I will share some information about eelgrass and the alternatives in the draft EA. So eelgrass is a marine plant that generally grows in soft bottom habitats in bays and estuaries and other nearshore areas. Eelgrass requires certain conditions to grow. For example, it requires access to sunlight, just like plants on land. So this means eelgrass can only grow at certain depths underwater to be able to get enough sunlight. Eelgrass found in San Diego Bay consists of 2 species. The first is called common eelgrass, or Zostera marina, and the second species is called Pacific eelgrass, or Zostera pacifica. Of the 2 species, common eelgrass is much more prevalent in San Diego Bay, as you probably guessed from the name. And Pacific eelgrass is only found in the outer bay waters. Generally, Pacific eelgrass grows in more open coastal areas in well-flushed environments, which means Pacific eelgrass is more limited in its distribution compared to common eelgrass. But all eelgrass species form marine meadows supporting multiple functions, including sediment stabilization, wave dampening, carbon cycling, nutrient uptake, and habitat structuring. Eelgrass, similar to other seagrasses, is considered a foundation species because it creates a highly structured habitat, which serves as an important nursery area for numerous fish and invertebrate species. So as you can see, eelgrass is a very important and productive habitat in San Diego Bay. So now that you know a little bit more about eelgrass, let's move into the alternatives that are discussed in the EA. So the Navy conducted an initial study to identify potential areas of San Diego Bay that could support restoration and expansion of marine habitats. The study identified 17 potential eelgrass habitat enhancement sites in the bay. These sites made up the pool of potential alternatives that could be analyzed. The first step in the analysis was to compare these 17 sites against screening factors in order to develop the list of alternatives in the EA. The Navy used screening factors to identify those alternatives that have the best ability to meet the needs of the project. This also helps to reduce the number of alternatives considered that are most likely to fail, generate substantial controversy, or result in significant environmental impacts. The Navy developed 3 screening factors which are specific to this project. The first screening factor is that the potential eelgrass site must be compatible with current and future Navy training and testing activities. So in other words, an eelgrass habitat expansion site must not present the potential to conflict with Navy activities in the bay. For example, certain activities require bottom conditions with little to no eelgrass, as dense stands of eelgrass can disrupt acoustic transmissions and obscure landmarks. So areas of the bay where those acoustic transmissions occur would not be compatible with the development of an eelgrass mitigation site. The second screening factor the Navy developed is that the eelgrass site must be compatible with existing and future public land uses. So a site must not present a potential for eelgrass to conflict with many of the public land uses in the bay. For example, placing dredge material in areas that are used for public recreational boating that would result in shallow water restrictions could interfere with safe navigation. And the final screening factor is that the site must have suitable physical conditions for immediate material and eelgrass placement. So a potential site must already have the existing physical conditions that eelgrass requires, except for depth, because we want to minimize our modifications that need to be made to the site in order for eelgrass to grow there. As part of the scoping and screening process, the Navy coordinated with the Port of San Diego, National Marine Fisheries Service, California Coastal Commission, as well as with Navy operational personnel. At the end of the screening process, the Navy reduced those initial 17 sites down to 4 potential sites that were grouped into 3 action alternatives. These 4 sites meet the purpose and need for the project and satisfy all 3 screening criteria. This figure is from the draft EA and depicts the 17 sites that underwent the screening process. The 13 sites that are called out in white did not meet the objectives or screening criteria of this project and were not carried forward for analysis. The 4 sites called out in yellow are those sites that met the screening criteria and were carried forward for analysis in the draft EA. The names of those sites are as follows: Ballast Point, Delta Beach to Homeport Island, Homeport Island Submerged Plateau, and South Silver Strand. The following slides summarize the features associated with each of these site alternatives. The first alternative is the Ballast Point site, which is located in the outer bay waters adjacent to the Point Loma Peninsula and consists of 10.1 acres. This site is targeted for the Pacific eelgrass species, which is the less common one. This area historically supported healthy beds of Pacific eelgrass in the early to mid 1990s. Since then, the beds have dramatically declined due to high intensity storms and have not recovered. As such, the existing depth at this site is already sufficient to support eelgrass habitat and would not require the fill of dredge material. Planting of Pacific eelgrass at the site would involve test plots to determine site suitability, and if successful, additional plots of eelgrass would be planted. The 2 unique elements of the site is that this is the only site at which fill material is not required, as the depth is already sufficient for eelgrass, and this would be the only Pacific eelgrass site in the alternatives considered. The anticipated maximum yield for this site is approximately 8.5 acres of Pacific eelgrass. The next alternative consists of 2 separate sites, but were grouped together for analyses as they were very similar. Site 2A, which you can see on the left-hand side of the map where the red arrow is pointing, is the Delta Beach to Homeport Island site. And 2B, or Homeport Island Submerged Plateau, is shown on the right side of the map. So starting with Site 2A, the Delta Beach to Homeport Island site is 9 acres and is located adjacent to Naval Amphibious Base, Coronado. For this site, the Navy would have to place dredge material to raise the bay floor by approximately 5 feet. Based on the existing and required depths, the Navy would need to use approximately 63,000 cubic yards of sand or mud fill. This site would also include the possibility of navigation signage as needed. The anticipated maximum eelgrass yield for this site is approximately 7 acres of common eelgrass. The next site with an alternative 2 is the Homeport Island Submerged Plateau site, which is 13 acres and is also adjacent to Naval Amphibious Base. For this site, the Navy would have to place dredge material to raise the bay floor by approximately 5 feet. Based on the existing and required depths, the Navy would need to use approximately 95,000 cubic yards of sand or mud fill. This site would also include the possibility of additional navigation signage. The anticipated maximum eelgrass yield for this site is approximately 12.6 acres of common eelgrass. The third and final alternative is the South Silver Strand location. The site is 10 acres and is located along the Silver Strand just north of the entrance to Crown Cove. For this site, the Navy would have to place dredge material to raise the bay floor by approximately 7 feet. Based on the existing and required depths, the Navy would need to use approximately 130,000 cubic yards of sand or mud fill. As this site is located near Crown Cove, which is an area used by recreational boaters, the Navy would install and maintain up to 2 navigation signs in this area to mark the shallow waters. The anticipated maximum eelgrass yield for this site is approximately 9.8 acres of common eelgrass. So those are the 4 sites that were grouped into 3 alternatives analyzed in the draft EA. Okay, in addition to the alternatives I just described, the Navy also evaluated the no action alternative in the draft EA. Under the no action alternative, the Navy would not create additional eelgrass habitat in San Diego Bay. This alternative would not meet the purpose and need for this project. However, as required by NEPA, the Navy has carried forward the no action alternative for analysis in the EA as it provides a baseline for measuring environmental consequences of the proposed action. The draft EA analyzed the potential impacts of the action alternatives and the no action alternative on various resource areas. All potentially relevant environmental resource areas were initially considered for analysis in the EA. Several of those resource areas were dismissed as they were not impacted by the proposed action. While the resource areas listed here were dismissed, the EA provides reasoning for doing so along with supporting analysis. The resource areas that were dismissed from the EA include air quality, geological resources, cultural resources, visual resources, airspace, noise, infrastructure, transportation, public health and safety, hazardous materials and waste, socioeconomics, and environmental justice. Although most resource areas were dismissed, the Navy provided a detailed evaluation of the potential impacts to 3 resource areas. Those areas are marine resources and bathymetry, or depth, marine biological resources, and land use. The draft EA also considered and evaluated potential cumulative impacts of the proposed action. Next, I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Commander Alex Stormer to explain the NEPA process, the key findings of the draft EA, and the opportunities and timeline that you have to provide your comments on the draft EA.
Hello, I'm Lieutenant Commander Alex Stormer. I'm the Navy's Deputy Region Environmental Counsel. I will now highlight the NEPA process, summarize the findings of the draft EA, and explain how you can submit your comments. The Navy is committed to a transparent and thorough environmental review. The public's input helps ensure all relevant issues are appropriately addressed. The National Environmental Policy Act requires federal agencies to consider the potential environmental impacts of their actions before making a decision. The public has an opportunity to provide input at key phases of the NEPA process. The chart here shows the opportunities for public involvement in this project. Public involvement started with scoping in January. The Navy conducted scoping in January by notifying stakeholders, newspapers, and other potentially interested persons and agencies of the project and requesting input. The Navy received 4 responses, which were considered and integrated into the preparation of the draft EA as applicable. We are now at the draft EA stage, and the draft EA is available for public review and comment until August 14th. The Navy will consider and address all substantive and relevant comments received in the preparation of the final EA. The Navy will notify the public of the availability of the final EA and decision notice, which based on the current status is anticipated to be late fall, early winter of 2023 and 2024. Council on Environmental Quality Regulations, the National Environmental Policy Act, and Navy instructions for implementing NEPA specify that an EA should address those resource areas potentially subject to impacts. In addition, the level of analysis should be commensurate with the anticipated level of environmental impact. An interdisciplinary team of subject matter experts, scientists, planners, and engineers prepared the draft EA. The draft EA carefully considered the potential impacts to resource areas from implementation of the proposed action and no action alternative. Overall, the EA determined that the proposed action would result in beneficial impacts. While site establishment activities would result in periodic and localized increase in turbidity and associated adverse but short-term impacts to eelgrass and species, there would be a long-term beneficial impact to marine water resources and marine biological resources. In addition, the site would be compatible with existing and future military and public land uses. In summary, implementation of any of the sites would result in less than significant impacts. As such, the Navy may choose to select one or more alternatives for implementation of the proposed action. As part of the NEPA process, the Navy is coordinating and/or consulting with the following entities. The Navy has an enduring partnership with the Port of San Diego, which includes collaborating on the conservation and management of San Diego Bay resources. The Navy is consulting with the California Coastal Commission in compliance with the Coastal Zone Management Act. The Navy is consulting with the National Marine Fisheries Service for impacts to aquatic species and aquatic habitat. And the Navy is also consulting with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for terrestrial species. As the Navy completes their coordination and consultations, the EA will be updated to reflect any additional measures to avoid or minimize impacts and demonstrate compliance with the appropriate regulations administered by these resource agencies. Also, at the appropriate time, the Navy would apply for and obtain Clean Water Act, Rivers and Harbors Acts permits, and water quality certification from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board. The Navy has made the draft EA for review electronically and via hard copy. The draft EA is available from this website. The draft EA is also available for hard copy review at these 5 libraries. The Navy notified the public, stakeholders, and the media by distributing publishing notices, letters, and postcards. Here's how to view the draft EA on the Navy website using the link provided on the following slide and again at the bottom of this slide. Scroll down to the Eelgrass project heading, then click on the draft EA. The website also includes a fact sheet on the project that provides instructions for submitting written comments. Note the placeholder for the meeting presentation. Following this meeting, we will post the presentation here for review. The Navy welcomes and appreciates substantive written public comments on the draft EA. For your comment to be considered by the Navy, submit it using one of these methods by Monday, August 14th. All relevant comments will be addressed in the final EA. I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Jason Golumsky-Jones. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Commander Stormer. This completes our informational overview of the project. The Navy values and appreciates your input on our project, and we encourage you to provide your substantive written comments on the project. Implementation of the project will support the Navy mission and the Navy's commitment to the conservation and management of the San Diego Bay and its resources. For more information, please visit the Navy website. Contents must be submitted by Monday, August 14th for consideration. We would like to thank you for participating, and we look forward to hearing from you. Now, we will transition to the written comment section of the meeting. We will not be accepting verbal input at this meeting. In this session, we will accept your comments in written format. We will not be answering questions at this time. All comments received will be part of the public record. Here are the instructions providing comments during tonight's virtual public meeting. Zoom desktop or mobile application. Click on Q&A icon. Type your comments. Comment will be received by the moderator. Moderator will confirm receipt of your comment. Please note that all comments will be part of the public record. When providing comments, please identify the page number or line numbers associated with your comment so that we can adequately address your comment if it pertains to a certain section. Please provide your written comments now. We will confirm receipt of each comment we receive. We will now periodically repeat 4 slides while people can provide their comments up until 7 p.m. tonight when we close this meeting. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to our contractor team for the duration of the comment time.
This has been the virtual public meeting for the Navy's proposed eelgrass habitat expansion project in San Diego Bay, California. The presentation is over, but the Navy is accepting your written comments tonight until 7 p.m. or by August 14th via email or mail. This presentation and the draft EA will be available at this website. The Navy has prepared a draft environmental assessment and provided a summary of the draft environmental assessment at this meeting. The Navy requests public review and written comments on the draft EA. The Navy welcomes and appreciates substantive written public comments on the draft EA. Comments must be postmarked or received by Monday, August 14th, 2023. You can submit your comments via email at this address or via mail at this address, or provide written comments at this meeting. Here are the instructions for providing comments during tonight's virtual public meeting. Note that all comments will be part of the public record. When providing your comment, please identify the page number and line number associated with your comment so that we can accurately address your comments. These slides will repeat in approximately 5 minutes. Thank you. Good evening. This has been the virtual public meeting for the Navy's proposed eelgrass habitat expansion project in San Diego Bay, California. The presentation is over, but the Navy is accepting your written comments tonight until 7 p.m. or by August 14th via email or mail. This presentation and the draft EA are available at this website. The Navy has prepared a draft environmental assessment and provided a summary of the draft environmental assessment at this meeting. The Navy requests public review and written comments on the draft EA. The Navy welcomes and appreciates substantive written public comments on the draft EA. Comments must be postmarked or received by Monday, August 14th, 2023. You may submit your comments via email at this address or via mail at this address, or provide written comments at this meeting. Here are the instructions for providing comments during tonight's virtual public meeting. Note that all comments will be part of the public record. When providing your comments, please identify the page number and line number associated with your comment so that we can accurately address your comment. Thank you, and this message will repeat in approximately 5 minutes. Good evening. This has been the virtual public meeting for the Navy's proposed eelgrass habitat expansion project in San Diego Bay, California. The presentation is over, but the Navy is accepting your written comments tonight until 7 p.m. or by August 14th via mail or email. This presentation and the draft environmental assessment are available at this website. The Navy has prepared a draft environmental assessment and provided a summary of the draft environmental assessment at this meeting. The Navy requests public review and written comments on the draft environmental assessment. The Navy welcomes and appreciates substantive written public comments on the draft environmental assessment. Comments must be postmarked or received by Monday, August 14th, 2023. You may submit your comments via email at this address or via mail at this address. Or you may provide your written comments at this meeting. Here are the instructions for providing comments during tonight's virtual public meeting. Note that all comments will be part of the public record. When providing your comments, please identify the page number and line number associated with your comment so that we can accurately address your comments. Thank you. The meeting summary slides will repeat in approximately 5 minutes. Hello and good evening. This has been the virtual public meeting for the Navy's proposed eelgrass habitat expansion project in San Diego Bay, California. The presentation is over, but the Navy is accepting your written comments tonight until 7 p.m. or by August 14th via email or mail. This presentation and the draft EA are available at this website. The Navy has prepared a draft environmental assessment and provided a summary of the draft environmental assessment at this meeting. The Navy requests public review and written comments on the draft environmental assessment. The Navy welcomes and appreciates substantive written public comments on the draft EA. Comments must be postmarked or received by Monday, August 14th, 2023. You may submit your comments using this email address or via mail to this address. Or you may also provide written comments at this meeting. Here are the instructions for providing comments during tonight's virtual public meeting. Note that all comments will be part of the public record. When providing your comment, please identify the page number and line number associated with your comment so that we can accurately address your comment. Thank you. And these summary slides will repeat in approximately 5 minutes. Good evening. This has been the virtual public meeting for the Navy's proposed eelgrass habitat expansion project in San Diego Bay, California. The presentation is over, but the Navy is accepting your written comments tonight until 7 p.m. or by August 14th via email or mail. This presentation and the draft environmental assessment are available at this website. The Navy has prepared a draft environmental assessment and provided a summary of the draft environmental assessment at this meeting. The Navy requests public review and written comments on the draft environmental assessment. The Navy welcomes and appreciates substantive written public comments on the draft environmental assessment. Comments must be postmarked or received by Monday, August 14th, 2023. You may submit your comments via email to this address or via mail to this address, or provide written comments at this meeting. Here are the instructions for providing comments during tonight's virtual public meeting. Note that all comments will be part of the public record. When providing your comment, please identify the page number and line number associated with your comment so that we can accurately address your comment. Thank you, and this message will repeat in approximately 5 minutes. Good evening. This has been the virtual public meeting for the Navy's proposed eelgrass habitat expansion project in San Diego Bay, California. The presentation is over, but the Navy is accepting your written comments tonight until 7 p.m. or by August 14th via email or mail. This presentation and the draft EA are available at this website. The Navy has prepared a draft environmental assessment and provided a summary of the draft environmental assessment at this meeting. The Navy requests public review and written comments on the draft environmental assessment. The Navy welcomes and appreciates substantive written public comments on the draft environmental assessment. Comments must be postmarked or received by Monday, August 14th, 2023. You may submit your comments via email to this address or via mail to this address, or provide written comments tonight at this meeting. Here are the instructions for providing comments during tonight's virtual public meeting. Note that all comments will be part of the public record. When providing your comment, please identify the page number and line number associated with your comment so that we can accurately address your comment. Thank you. And this meeting summary will repeat in approximately 5 minutes. Good evening. This has been the virtual public meeting for the Navy's proposed eelgrass habitat expansion project in San Diego Bay, California. The presentation is over, but the Navy is accepting your written comments tonight until 7 p.m. or by August 14th via email or mail. This presentation and the draft environmental assessment are available at this website. The Navy has prepared a draft environmental assessment and provided a summary of the draft environmental assessment at this meeting. The Navy requests public review and written comments on the draft environmental assessment. The Navy welcomes and appreciates substantive written public comments on the draft environmental assessment. Comments must be postmarked or received by Monday, August 14th, 2023. You may submit your comments via email to this address, via mail to this address, or provide written comments at this meeting. Here are the instructions for providing your comments during tonight's virtual public meeting. Note that all comments will be part of the public record. When providing your comment, please identify the page number and line number associated with your comment so that we can accurately address your comment. This meeting will conclude in approximately 2 minutes at 7 p.m. There will be no further announcements. However, please feel free to provide your comment in the next 2 minutes or via email or mail by August 14th. Thank you for participating. This concludes our presentation. Good evening.